knows.
All right. Well, it is 4 o'clock. Thank you to those of you who are here with us now. I'm going to start with some housekeeping. Um, and first, just thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Joan, for doing this event with us. The structure of this event will first be introductions, then a talk interview discussion with our author, and lastly, we'll have time to take any questions or comments. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand. We can unmute you. You can write your question in the chat box or Q&A, and I can ask them for you. If you have any technical difficulties, feel free to write it in the chat box, and I will assist you there. Hopefully we won't. Okay, let me introduce Joan to you. Joan Brooks Baker was born in 1944 and brought up in New York City by dyed-in-the-wool Southern parents. At age 11, she was taught how to make a pinhole camera with a shoebox, which she took, along with her deep curiosity, down the city's streets, Central Park, or just simply the subway. She came to understand that she was making mental snapshots in order to create sense out of the chaos in her life. Joan has exhibited her photographs and photographic monoprints in several galleries, mainly in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and New York City. The United Nations 70 women from 50 countries exhibit featured Joan's images of India's female garbage workers. Her work has been featured in Cross by Kelly Klein, Searching for Mary Magdalene, A Journey Through Art and Literature by Jane Lar, Miss Magazine, Men's Vogue, and Town and Country Magazine, The Dead Mule of Southern Literature, Symbols of Faith, A Visual Journey to the Historic Churches of New Mexico, just to name a few. Her last photographic project, and one that spanned several years, was of the Black Madonna. In her search to find the meaning of the icon's legend, Joan began to relate the Black Madonna's narrative to women she admired and to herself. It was through the Black Madonna presentation that she was inspired to write her memoir, The Magnolia Code. Please welcome Joan Brooks Baker and her memoir, The Magnolia Code. Thank you so much, Joan.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and the Santa Fe Public Library. I love this library. I love libraries, and we have 3 branches here, and they're all good. I go to the main one downtown mostly, and Jessica, I have to tell you, you have sent over some questions that you might ask or might not, and they're really good. So I'm very appreciative of you obviously really read the book.
Yeah, I can't wait to interview you, and I encourage everyone to read The Magnolia Code. It's just a beautiful book, and it's unlike any memoir I feel like I've ever read. So first, what prompted you to write The Magnolia Code? I know it was the Black Madonna, but maybe you can explain a little bit more about that, and why was it now important for you to write this book?
Well, I think sometimes it's hard to answer that question, but I feel that even as a child, I had a sort of question about belonging. I don't think I understood the word and the meaning then, but I have to give credit to my Uncle Itch. And he was from Jacksonville, Florida, where my father was from. He would occasionally come up to the big city of New York, and he was a character. He scared my sister Alice and me. I call her Alicia in the book. Scared us to death, but one time I came into the living room in New York, and he threw me up in the air and he said, "Why, you're just a little damn Yankee girl, and where are you ever going to belong?" And, I think that question and that thought in his head just stayed with me. And, it's interesting how you can peg that phrase. And then I did have, as you know, Jessica, and you said you liked her. A lot of people like my Aunt Billy. And she was just a character. She didn't quite belong. And she was my mother's adopted sister. nobody quite knew where she came from. And, in the South, they never tell you anything because the South has secrets. And she said, she never quoted it right, but Oscar Wilde said, might as well be yourself. Everyone else is taken. And, these little things like that stick in your head. And she just encouraged me to, she was herself. She was a character, as I say, and not everyone in my family liked her. But I think she encouraged me to just go out there, do what you want, but know that this was the important thing. Know that there's always a consequence to your choice. So I went forth, I guess.
Thank you. There's so many amazing characters in your family and in your life that oftentimes I forgot I was reading a memoir because you're just like, you're such amazing people. It's so funny, so different. And you've really fully developed them. Not that they weren't developed people themselves, but it was just
Yeah.
like, I could see being around them and their energy. My next question, I know, but for the audience, where does the Magnolia Code title of your book originate from?
Well, my parents were dyed-in-the-wool Southerners, as you've already said. They came north in the end of the Depression, determined to make it. And but they really brought with them what I call this unwritten book of manners and the correct way of being and what you should wear. And facades, I felt was very much in my the code book. This, you don't reveal yourself. You you sort of get along with the rules of society. You do your best, but it's not about revealing. And I think I really like to reveal. I think I'm also quite private, but my sister and I came up with that name because my mother said, "Oh, you're going to the South and such a beautiful time to go, and those magnolias smell so good." And I said, "I don't like the smell of the scent of magnolias. It's sticky and claustrophobic." And one thing happens, and told my sister, and we came up with this, that unwritten book of codes and manners. Let's call it the Magnolia Code. I mean, sort of happened like that. How do things happen? Who knows?
Yeah, I love it. There's there's a lot of you being corrected throughout your life, and
I want to say also that, every culture has its codes. I mean, whether it's the Western United States or New England or European, everyone has them. So I just felt that their code book was the Magnolia Code. And
love it. Yeah, my mother's side is all from Switzerland, and
oh
and there's certainly an unspoken code there
yeah,
as well. We're always so wild to them, us crazy
yeah,
Americans. So
yeah. No,
loud.
everyone live the idea is live within it, and that's when you'll be happy, if you live within the construct. And I think there was something in me that said I don't want to.
Yeah, you wanted to dance, but your partner was Eddie who doesn't dance. But you had to follow the code and just sit properly,
Yeah,
among many other things of the code. Yeah,
that's when I first knew that I came second. Eddie came first.
yeah. What surprised you in writing your memoir? Did you discover more about yourself or your family during the process?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because I think I really understood who my parents were, and where they came from. I my mother had I think she, and I say this with kindness, but I think she was always looking for the Southern belle. As much as she loved New York City, she just had a philanderer husband, and she was shy, very formal. And so I understood her. And she wasn't always the kindest person, but there was something in me that kind of, I don't like the expression they did the best they could, because I think that's not quite true. Um, because if you really explore, you can do better. Um, but I think she had a bit of a tragic life in a way. And I cared about her. I cared about her more when I finished the book. I cared about people like that more. You have to, I cared about the South more. I mean, I really feel that there's so many good things about the South. I never lived there. There's so many not so good things. But as I think I say in the book, nobody can tell a story like a Southerner. Uh, Nobody can have you sit on their porch with a mint julep in your hand and really laugh. And there's a lot of good stuff. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself and how I related and what I cared about. I think was part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell there's so much love in your book.
Oh,
Even painful parts, it's all with love.
well,
Um,
thank you for saying that. That means a lot to me. Yeah.
during during the writing process, did you find it healing or helpful for your own personal growth? Or yeah.
I think, yes, I think, going back to what my Aunt Billy said, might as well be yourself. I mean, I have not lived, in many ways, I've lived a conventional life. In many ways, I haven't. I live with wonderful artist Margot Klein, a woman, and happily so. And I think what I wanted to, very happily so I should say, but I think I've had to learn how to, I don't want to be pegged into anything. I just want to be myself. And I think that's kind of what I mean, my dying breath, if you say, what, I don't know, but I'm getting there. And I think that's really important to try and figure out what you want and who you are and risk. You ask a question of what would I say to somebody who wants to write or whatever. I would say dare is the word. Dare to try and find out who you are. Why not? We're all going to just keel over one day and um, and accept the consequences. It's worth it.
Definitely. Yeah, that's very inspiring.
Mm.
Who There's plenty of characters who encouraged you to do your thing, like your Aunt Billy, and go against the code. How I know your parents said, there's no money in photography, Joni,
Oh, yeah.
and so how did you get that? How did you dare? How did you dare go against the code and just do what you wanted as a photographer? Who was it that encouraged you in your life?
You know, well, as I say, I've already sort of spoken of people who encouraged me. I and loved going out on the street with my little shoebox. Um, I got I got some real support, perhaps later on in my life. I was always taking pictures, but taking photographs, but I can't say that I had a lot of good feeling about my photography until later. I have a great friend in New York who has died, Sean Driscoll, gave me my first show. And um, just, people, when they say you can do it, yeah, you probably aren't going to make a lot of money. Who knows? Unfortunately, I remember my father saying that. But then, in some ways, if I've taken 10 wonderful photographs that I really like, as someone said to me once, that's enough. And it's that, gosh, support people. It's so hard, and the art world, as we know, is so hard. And as much as I love New York City, and I don't think I said this to you, I think I would have had a hard time writing the book in New York. I think the pie is very small in New York. There's a lot of determination, a lot of, I mean, it's so creative there. And I, I, I really sort of felt that I wrote it because I was more in Santa Fe, where I don't know, that's a long story, but I was encouraged all along the way. And my character, my Cactus Pete, who's my constant companion, I think gave me the spirit. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to know the world. I still do. I love people. Uh, I am an extrovert, and I get my inspiration from people, and obviously from myself too. But there's so much creativity in Santa Fe, as I mentioned, and if you'd like, I'd love to read a little piece. But there's so much creativity here, and you know, I don't think I think Santa Fe is known as a city of art, but I always say it's really a city of creativity. So much here.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I would definitely like you to do a reading, but before you dive into that, since you mentioned Cactus Pete, who's the best gunslinging little lady,
Right.
can you explain a little background on this character, your spirit? And I want to know, does Cactus Pete live on with you today?
Oh, definitely. Cactus Pete is by my side. I have several friends who call me Cactus. It's a funny thing, but my father is the one who gave me the name, and I think I think I came out into this world sort of um, almost with my guns on. I had some sort of energy, and I think he recognized it. And I one of the trips I remember when we were children was going out west to a ranch, and I thought, well, this is heaven. I was only 9. I remember my horse wouldn't move, but I was allowed to go in and get some little cowboy boots. They were red, and a hat and a bolo tie. And he had already named me Cactus Pete. He recognized something in me. Some sort of individualistic. I think I must have had a lot of energy as a child. Probably drove him crazy. I don't know. But
I love
Cactus is
Cactus.
alive and well, and gives me this spirit, and gives me, I think, some courage.
There's even a part in your memoir uh, where you're lost in a store, but you don't use your name to announce it for your mother. You say Cactus Pete.
She never called me Cactus, but
Yeah.
he did all my years. Yeah, I think Cactus Pete had been a cowboy that, you know, in the movies or something that he knew about a long time ago.
You want to break up our discussion a little bit and read from your memoir?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Thank you.
Well, I thought I'd read from my chapter on Santa Fe. We arrived on Halloween. It felt auspicious to land in this place where the spirits of the dead were honored on All Hallows Eve, a good sign. Some consider Santa Fe a bohemian outpost, a place that draws those who don't fit into a conventional mode, especially artists. While people often refer to Santa Fe as an arts center, it is more a center of creativity. They say the city is New Mexico's capital, has an attitude and reputation of not quite belonging to the United States. I felt an affinity for both references, that it didn't belong and that it did have attitude. A week after I arrived, I met Emily, a refined, mischievous 80-year-old woman who had lived in Santa Fe on and off since her 30s. When she arrived with her father from Chicago in his bank's private rail car, Emily was wise and had a wonderfully odd sense of humor to tease her beloved Native American friends at her birthday celebration. The night I met her, Emily regally wore a headband with half an arrow attached to each side. Over her one ample vodka a night, Emily warned that newcomers could stay in Santa Fe only if they meant to be honest. Never remain in the closet, she said. Those who do are sent home. She wasn't referring to being gay. She was simply saying that you must be real. You must risk being true to yourself, whatever the consequences. Emily and I immediately became friends. Joe and I, who I went out here with, both urbanites, immersed ourselves in what we fantasized was the cowboy world. We thought the whooping and whistling cattle drive we witnessed one day just 10 miles north of the city was a mirage. Everywhere we turned, we encountered another character. The warning, don't go up north to interview the Chicano Ike de Vargas, he's dangerous, only spurred us on. The handsome Ike greeted us on a cold day and after sweeping off a snow-covered log with his machete, invited us to sit down. If Ike represented a dangerous man, I was enchanted. He was proud to show us the hospital clinic he had started in remote northern New Mexico. And it was fascinating to hear his stories of the ancient patron or Hispanic mafia system that still forcefully controlled this small part of the world. Ike dared to run against him in a local election, but he didn't win. In Santa Fe, eccentricity was applauded and drinking was encouraged. I'm sorry I missed the fights that spilled out onto Santa Fe's artistic canyon road from the infamous Claude's Bar. Our new friend Peter, born and bred in Santa Fe, told us how his beautiful mother, after several tequilas, once rode her horse through the front door of La Fonda Hotel and ordered drinks for everyone standing. All of this fed my sense that I had landed in the middle of an old Western film. And I go on about Santa Fe. I love Santa Fe. I love New York City and Santa Fe the most.
I love it. See, and just that short reading, it's packed with these characters and stories. It's how the whole book is. I love it. It's
Thank
never
you.
never
Thank you,
dull.
Jessica.
It's so wonderful.
Well, it's pretty easy in Santa Fe to find characters.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
for sure. Um, I also love the way you write about New York. I mean, it was at the time you were there. It's dreamy and where you live in, but at this there's still racial tension, and you didn't go to mean Harlem or the mean Bronx, but yeah, but uh, your your descriptions are just so vivid. I love it.
Thank you, Jessica. You're great.
Was it ever scary to reveal any certain thing about your family or yourself, or was it important for you to write your truth and be
No,
out of the closet, as you just said?
well, I think people who write memoirs are always concerned. I did change names, and I, I think I don't think I was scared, but I know I have a cousin who doesn't particularly like the book, and I felt I said things about the South that were true, but I also felt I was compassionate to racial problems and what was going on, and it was pretty horrible, as we all know what went on, and my family certainly was involved. My grandmother was born and raised on a plantation, and I'm sure there was slavery, of course, but I think I tried to be very considerate of the characters in the book. I'm very different. My sister, hi Alice, we're very different, and we really care about each other. And she loved the book. She always would say, is that really true? I don't remember. I said, well, I might have exaggerated a little bit, but uh, the book is based on truth. But if I got something good from the South, it's storytelling. I love to tell stories.
You're very good at it. Um, and that was my next question, was how your family members have received the book, uh, or even loved ones who may have passed. How do you think they would have felt about the book, The Magnolia Code?
I think they would feel fine, really. I don't think I maligned anyone. I mean, would my father have liked me revealing his escapades with others? I probably not. But would I have written the book, brought it out when my parents were alive? I'm not so sure. But I'm compassionate and I care, and I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But I wanted to say who I am. So part of saying who you are is, you have to tell some truths.
Yes, I agree. I also found it interesting that although you were raised around very proper parents and proper lifestyle, your caretaker, Sophie, was very keen on dream interpretation and interpreting what was left behind in your hot cocoa mug, or
Right.
and your Aunt Billy interested in powers about the soul's connection, and a gypsy advised her to
No.
get a cat for protection and balance. Where were you drawn to these kind of mysteries and enchanted by their ways, or did you feel guilt or worry, upset your parents would by daring to understand these kinds of?
Yeah, I think that well, I totally believe that this is not all there is. I mean, there are spirits out there, and I love it when people say, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, there's no heaven, there's no," and I always say, "Well, when you die, come back and tell me." And it usually stops that conversation. I think that the mysteries of nature are extraordinary. I think, as you know, my mother did come to me when I was walking the labyrinth in Chartres. She did, and it was very important to me. It was a real turning moment in my life. Sophie was just wonderful. My nanny was so wonderful. I'm not sure she talked too much about the spirits out there, but Aunt Billy, why not believe? That's what I always say. Why not? I mean, uh, I read in the paper today. There's so much going on, and I just read the headlines, but all of these, are there aliens? Are there this? I don't know. And so I was drawn to the fact that this is not all there is. And I think that is the way I would like to live, really. I love that spiritual world. It's a wonderful world.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that too. Why not? And your Aunt Billy, I believe that cat brought her balance and protection for
Yeah,
sure.
and I'm very, I'm very interested in Bastet the cat, and I may have exaggerated that a little bit, but it had a place in the book. The Black Madonna and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, So I've read so many memoirs over this last year. A lot of people published their memoir during the pandemic, and um, which is great. I'm so happy everyone had time to hunker down and analyze their life. It's very cool, but I have to say yours was very different than and the other ones I read, just because of all of these wonderful characters in your life and all of these great stories, you being such a good storyteller. That I've already mentioned that I sometimes forget I'm reading a memoir. I thought this almost seems like fiction. It's so entertaining and deep, and um, so I want to share that your book actually didn't get cataloged into the biography section. In the memoir section, um, the it got cataloged under the Dewey number 305.4, which is it is women and sociology, but it's more sociology, and I think because you touched on so many social roles throughout that you know helped you develop and understand the world, between racial issues, and then women being proper, you're not allowed to dance unless a boy asks you to dance, and just social roles. And I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to bring that up. And then colleges like Oberlin has cataloged your book in their art libraries under photographers, which is cool too.
That is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Will you talk a little bit about how you chose to write your book? If there was a particular fashion you wanted it to be written in? Did you intend it to be a memoir only, or something more that you wanted readers to understand?
Well, complicated question. I think you just start. I did start with, as I've been a photographer, and when I gave my presentation on the Black Madonna, it was Joan Tewksbury, who's a a writer here, um, quite well known, and she said, "I think you like to write," and I said, "Oh." She said, come to my workshop. And I did. And one of the first stories I wrote was about Uncle Itch. So I think, we all have stories in us. Do they come out? Not necessarily. Do you want to tell them? Some of us like to, hide our stories. So I have lots of feelings about the world, politics, women, certainly the patriarchy. Um, and it just seemed like the stories were kind of natural coming out. And I was very encouraged in this workshop I did, and um, realized that I had something to say. I had a voice, I felt. I'm not sure I would have thought I had a voice then, but I came to know that I liked my stories. And I think if I like my stories, that's a way of getting it out there. It's hard to answer your question exactly because um, you just, you sit down and write about something reminds me of that, and I remember that moment, and that's why I say I encourage people, just remember a moment and put down a sentence, and then it just became a book. I think the hardest thing is to end a book, and I think a lot of writers would agree with me. How do you summarize it? How do you actually pull together what you wanted to say? And I think I felt, whether I was really successful or not, I felt I was. It was because it's pulling all those pieces. Like, as I say, life is trying to balance. And uh, Bastet the cat, the tail, it helped me balance. And I'm writing something about Bastet right now. But it's about seeing all these different entities and trying to put it together into a world of balance. That's as best I think I can answer that. That's a very good question. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, Stepping back into your memoir, um, paradox has played a big role in your life. Can you talk a little about that and explain how paradox has?
Well, I tell you, I sometimes think I kind of use the wrong word. I mean, paradox is certainly Socrates. I know, what did he say? I know that I know nothing, kind of. And I think what I was really writing about more was um, the contradictions, as I say, the South, the good part, the bad part. Um, my idea, I will jump ahead a little bit and not quite answering your question, but I started off saying that I thought so much about belonging, and I am just starting a story and really got this feeling. I just came back from New York a few weeks ago. My story is I am just a visitor. Uh, I belong in my own way. Of course, what we want in the end is to belong to ourselves. And that's the best you can do. So, is there paradox in there? and I think I might be stretching a word, but there it is. I'm just a visitor, and we're all really just visitors. If we can belong for a little bit or to ourselves, it's pretty great.
Thank you. Um, well, you're a brilliant and known photographer. Now that you've written this brilliant memoir, do you see yourself more as a writer or a photographer? What comes first, the camera or the pen? Or are these art forms just incomparable?
Yeah, no, they're not, they are very comparable, but I think that as much as I enjoyed photography, and I also feel, I've always felt a photograph is a short story. If you can get your point across, I mean, I'm much more interested in the journalistic type of photography. If you can tell a story with that one photograph, you've really done it. And we know war photographers for sort of obvious, um, Dorothea Lange, any of those who really show the world's um, problems and struggles. And the difference for me, as much as I like photography, is as a writer, I could grab the moment that I'm remembering and writing about, and then put my emotion, my own personal emotion into it. It's not just photographing the war scene or the um, depression scene, etc. But I could put my own emotion down into the story. And so I really feel what I like is writing. I think photography is wonderful, but that's that's who I am, as being able to tell my feeling and write it down. So that's, I mean, I and as I say, I've been writing short stories lately, the last year, under the title of If Only I Had, If Only I Could. And now I'm having a hard time, but I'm concentrating on um, I'm just a visitor.
Thank you. And I also want to share with everyone throughout Joan's memoir, there's photography, her photos, and then family photos throughout, and I just really bring everything alive. I'm gonna keep talking about Aunt Billy because I can't get over her, but gorgeous photos and her cat. It's wonderful. So thank you for sharing all of the images throughout your memoir as well. Descriptions are so vivid anyway. You didn't need to even have them, but I think just having them together just made it so much stronger.
Well, that may I say that Collected Works has been kind and generous enough to, because I was supposed to launch the book in June last year. Of course, that couldn't happen, and I was putting up photographs. So they are up now, and she has said wonderfully, keeps them up all summer. So a lot of, not all of the photographs from the book, but a lot of them are there.
That is so awesome. Thank you for telling us that. I am going to go there as soon as I can. I want to see all these.
Thank you. And I, of course, plug independent bookstores and Collected Works. It's my favorite. Garcia is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
New York has, and the corner bookstore, and of course Amazon. And I have gotten wonderful awards, I have to say, give a plug, because the Independent Press gave me a wonderful award.
Well deserved, Joan. I am serious. It's great. I only have a few more questions, so I just want to remind everyone, if you have a question or a comment, feel free to raise your hand so we can unmute you, or you can type it in the chat or Q&A. We can ask it. So, Joan, so many people would like to tell their story or write their memoir, either to document for their family, maybe to advise, help others who have similar paths or face similar hardships. Some write out their memoir to better understand who they are, process their life. What advice would you give to anyone who would like to write their own memoir? What do you think is important to know when one writes their story in their life? I know you've already told them to dare, but if you could elaborate a little.
You know, write the first sentence, but the first sentence has to be one that grabs you as the writer and will grab the reader. And memoir, I think you have to be careful not to get into, well, I was born and then this happened. Or, as interesting as that might be, it's not going to grab somebody, but to say, what's that one thing you remember? What's the one moment of, sort of gravitas or that may have changed you, or that you looked at somebody and looked out your window. I was always looking out our window in New York City and just looking at everybody and write the first sentence, have faith. It's so hard. But yes, I think dare to do it. Dare to know that you have a story. And I mean, why not? And keep going. And then throw things out. Start another story. It's really easy to say. It's
No,
but
I think that's good advice. Yeah.
Well, I think I had a lot of first liners that I liked, so go for it. Why not? Who cares? Just do it.
Do it.
And join a group. I mean, that is very important. Get other people's advice that says that doesn't make sense. That's not interesting. I have gone to so many workshops and I have gotten something out of every one of them.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And dare to know that people are allowed to say that it doesn't make sense to me, and be able to hear that.
Definitely.
We all have stories. Yeah.
Well, since I am a librarian, what authors do you like to read?
Oh, well, of course, Southern writers are extraordinary, and we all know that. And you know, and they're tough. A lot of them. I mean, Flannery O'Connor. If you can get through, A Good Man Is Hard to Find, or Faulkner. My gosh, really tough to read. I read that in school with other people, with a teacher. But I think actually Southern writers can be very brutal. And I think that is a juxtaposition of there being, the culture is so much about graciousness and gentility. And I think there's something that comes out of that juxtaposition, that sort of, we're so gentle, but they're not. They also had slaves. I mean, I think there's something. Anyway, I love reading Southern writers. Bell Hooks, a Black writer, wonderful. Truman Capote, he wrote, obviously we know, well, and then you think about Tennessee Williams, another brutal writer. Truman Capote, but he wrote something that's always stayed in my head, short story called A Christmas Memory. I would say that for women, oh gosh, as a child, I loved Nancy Drew. That maybe got me started. Penelope Lively is a wonderful English writer. And Annie Proulx, my gosh. Roxana Robinson is a friend of mine and wrote a wonderful book, well, written many books, but Cost. I think one of the oddest writers is Gertrude Stein. She uses, I don't know, her commas, you can hardly follow it, but, great Joan Didion. I'm just sort of throwing things out here. Edwidge Danticat. all so many extraordinary writers. I think that let's see, Just Kids. It's one of my favorite books. I bet you've read that. And the book that I can't think, but it's always hard to come up with names of writers. But I think when I mention writers like this, they bring they bring me into their life, and it's not just a story. It's deeper than that. It's a point of view, and I think that's what I kind of wanted to put into my own book. Bring people into, whether they agree with you or not. It's a way of looking at life, and all these writers that I have mentioned, really, really, Alice Kaplan. I don't know if you've read Dreaming in French. And Elizabeth Strout. Oh, she's so great. Anyway, I bang on about it, and Just Kids as Patti Smith. Um, but all these great writers, and and I love Jhumpa Lahiri, the Indian. Um, I'm sure I'm not mentioning a lot of people, but the people who tell a story and bring you into their life.
Yeah. That's a great list. Yeah.
And I feel the same about photographers. Those who caught the scene, as I said, I did have a lovely acquaintance with Mary Ellen Mark. And speaking of somebody who was brave and risk, she went into the brothels in Bombay and just stayed with them. And she had such a way of accepting and looking at people without fear. Sebastian Salgado is extraordinary. All these wonderful people who are so creative. Yeah, I'm sure I'm leaving 100 people out, but Debbie Fleming Caffrey, who is often here, she is such a great photographer, and I have some photographs of hers. Yeah,
That's awesome. Thank you. I find that to be a very tough question when people ask me my favorite
well,
author.
first of all, you go blank and
Too
you think,
hard. Yeah, exactly. So, um, again, feel free to raise your hand or ask a question. But my final question is, what is next for Joan Brooks Baker?
oh,
Continue to write? Will you continue to photograph? Will you continue to show and share your art with the world?
thank you for that. The thought that I should maybe share. I'm very into writing these short stories, and I'd love to think I have a novel in me. I can't seem to grab hold of it yet. I am learning more about photography actually with my iPhone. My friend Wendy Young has helped me so much with how to, because I never was one to carry around a tremendous amount of equipment. I didn't think it was necessary, and I loved actually taking my Leica. Um, uh, but I just would like to hopefully continue being creative, and if that's in the world of writing, I'm very pleased if I can do that. And I love Santa Fe and be creative in Santa Fe and New York City. So onward, I hope. The stumbling blocks are there, that's for sure, but I hope that I can carry on. And I'm going to be doing readings in the East. Hopefully, I will. My sister lives in Philadelphia. I'm going to be doing one there. Very interesting people and creative place, and hopefully in New York City. I'm going to go to the South in the fall and see what happens there.
Wonderful. Thank you. I hope you do continue to share your art forms with the world.
Thank you.
You're truly
Lovely,
wonderful.
lovely to hear. Thank you so much.
If no one has any questions, just want to make sure that you know to visit joanbrooksbaker.com, learn more about Joan there. The Santa Fe Public Library has copies of Magnolia Code on our shelves. Be sure to check it out and be sure to purchase it from our local bookstores. And there's, of course, many online vendors that have it. Um, yeah, I just want to thank everyone for being here this afternoon with us for this wonderful discussion with Joan Brooks Baker. A million times thank you, Joan, for sharing
Well,
with
you're a great interviewer, Jessica, and I thank everyone who, I don't know who's out there as participants, but I feel the energy, and I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
everyone. Stay safe, read books, read the Magnolia Code, and have a great weekend. Take care, everyone.
You too, Jessica. Thank you. Let's meet up sometime.
Let's do.
Okay.
I'd love to hear more stories. Bye, everyone.